YouTube friends, it's Victoria from Victoria Makes. I thought I'd come on today and have a bit of a chat about different things to do with crafting, where to source your fabrics and bits and bobs, how to save things from things you've got around the house. When you're looking through all your clothes and fabrics or furnishings and you're trying to see if you're going to keep them or not and have a little declutter in the springtime, it's a great time to look at everything and see if you can utilise it in a different way. So if you've got marks on your clothes or cardigans have got all bally and you're going to throw them away, some bedding maybe a little bit thinner in parts, discoloured slightly, and you want to get rid of it, don't just throw it out in the bin. Look at it again and see if you can actually do something with it. Clothes can sometimes be repaired or altered. Sometimes they might not fit you anymore, they may be too small or too large, and they've got buttons on them, zips on them, maybe lace or trims on them. Item of clothing, be it a dress or skirt, into panels and pieces, or large pieces. Collect the buttons off things and the zips and lace or all the trims like I said before, and keep those so that you can use them in craft projects in the future. If a garment has a tear and it cuts directly into the weave of your fabric, unless it's something that can be patched, you probably think, oh, I'm going to have to throw that away. So again, it's best to cut it up and save it and try and use it for something else. Always look at that when you're actually throwing things out, making sure that you keep favourite fabrics so you can use them in the future. This is also really good for the planet, isn't it? Recycling and reusing. A lot of these fabrics nowadays and in the past have taken lots of energy. Synthetic fabrics, of course, the main thing. They take a lot of energy to produce. So we don't want to be just throwing them away in landfill because they probably won't be breaking down very easily either. So if we can cut them up and use them again, that's great. Also, you may have paid a lot of money for a garment that you're going to throw out, so it is good to use it again if you can and get your money's worth, or repair it. There are people, dressmakers and alteration shops out there that can repair a favourite piece of your clothing for you. And yes, it does cost money, but surely that's better if you can still use it again. If you have it made smaller or larger, put an extra panel in it maybe so you can enlarge it as well. So always consider the alternatives instead of just throwing things out. I mentioned in the previous video about how to store all these sort of garments and pieces and buttons and everything. And if you haven't got like a piece of furniture or a specific craft room, ideal things are boxes and bags that can be put away, or they look pretty when they're out. So I did mention about covering cardboard boxes up in the past and making them pretty so that if you are putting them in a room and they are able to be seen, then it looks a nice decorative feature as well. But if you're fortunate enough to have a craft room and storage in the craft room, then obviously you can section each item in a separate drawer or compartment. So all buttons together, all threads together, all different colours of fabrics together, or types of fabrics together, and zips and notions, etc. So you can easily get to it when you're starting a project. So how to actually dismantle these garments. Turn it inside out, and then you'll see a seam, be it a pair of trousers or a blouse or a skirt or coat or whatever, and then using a seam ripper or a pair of dressmaking scissors, cut it up against the seam and all around the fabric, so you're cutting away from the seam, so the seam will all be left, and throw that out, but keep your zips as I said before. Keep any interlining, could be used for stuffing in the future as well. Anything pretty that you think that could be used again. Always wash your fabric after so that it's all nice and clean, and then fold it up and store it. Now when you've got jumpers, cardigans, knitwear, etc., you've got to be a bit more careful with that because obviously it could unravel when you cut it up. So again, lie it flat and cut the seams with scissors right up to the seam, and then quickly put masking tape on the edges so that it doesn't unravel, and then obviously store it like that. To start any craft project, you need basic tools, and you'll need a variety of needles and thread, dressmaking scissors and pinking shears to stop the fabric fraying, a thimble, knitting needles and crochet needles if you're going to start doing that sort of project as well. Tape measure and tailor's chalk for marking the fabric so you know where to cut. I also have got a rotary cutter and a self-healing cutting board, which I find really useful. Now, you don't need everything. I've also got a sewing machine. You don't need a sewing machine if you're going to do hand sewing. And you don't necessarily need the cutting board and rotary cutter if you've got some dressmaking scissors. But it does help when you're actually marking out your fabric and getting straight edges. Before I got that, if I was cutting something like a square or rectangle, it wasn't always exactly square, so I found that really helpful to make things in square. Dressmaking dummies, they're useful if you're going to go into dressmaking, and then you can pin the fabric on and make sure that it is fitted to your size because they're adjustable. That's really useful. An everyday item that really comes in handy is an iron and an ironing board. You can buy specific irons for sewing which are very small, and little tiny ironing boards that can go on the table. Dressmaking pins and pin cushions, that's another one. I made this and just put it in a teacup, which is pretty. You can do all sorts of pin cushions, and I'll be doing some of those tutorials in the future as well. I've seen on the Great British Sewing Bee that they have often a pin cushion on a Velcro strap around their wrist, which I thought was really good and a very simple thing to use as well. And then you're not having to look for it as you're sewing, around the table in between your piles, etc. That's a very handy and easy thing to make and to use as well. So there's so many fabrics about, isn't there? And all fabrics have uses. I wouldn't say just get one type of fabric. You're going to come across lots of fabric if you're cutting up your own clothes, and there will be some use in the future for everything. If you like the design and you really love the colour and the type of the fabric, just keep it, and then hopefully you will find the inspiration on the internet of something to use your fabric for. If in a few years you don't like it anymore, you can always pass it on or donate it to a charity shop. But for the meantime, if you're trying to accrue fabric for your craft room, keep most things that you are throwing out, chop them up and keep them. You might find a project for them. Hand sewing, it is wise to get a book from the library or a charity shop, or invest in a brand new book which shows you the stitches, a few basic ones that you need to learn. So if you can actually find out and try to do your sewing stitches on a piece of fabric, so you get to know what they are before a project, it'll make it a lot easier. And also, if you've got a sewing machine, get used to your sewing machine and the different stitches that it has. Have a play around with it. Mine's got a few on, but you can get some sewing machines with lots of different embroidery stitches on the sewing machine that you can do, which are fantastic. They are on expensive sewing machines, of course. There's so many choices then with one of these upmarket sewing machines to actually personalise and decorate a project using fancy stitching. So that's always nice to have if you've got a lovely sewing machine. There's plenty of patterns out there, isn't there? Thousands and thousands of different pattern makers, and lots of patterns for everything from soft furnishings to clothing to theatrical costumes, etc. So whatever your passion, I would think you will find a suitable pattern to follow. But you can actually make your own if you know what you want to make. And a good way of making things, if you're making something simple, is to cut the shapes out of cardboard. So I use cereal packets. So here I've got hearts and patchwork hexagon shapes. I've got a shape I've cut out here which I use for fabric carrots at Easter. And then there's a small hexagon shape I've done here. Very large heart. Let's have a look what else we've got. Lots and lots of different heart shapes in there. This one is a rabbit shape, which I make stuffed rabbits for Easter, and I'll show you those coming up in another video. And this one I used for a peg bag. Okay, And I just got an original peg bag which was going a little bit dirty because it'd been outside, oilcloth one, and I just drew around it so I've got the actual pattern. So you can make your own basic patterns, can't you? But if you're doing something like making an item of clothing, for example, or a bag or soft furnishing, you can get some great ideas from the large pattern makers, and they produce a pattern for almost anything, and that makes it easy. And you just buy the pattern, cut up the pattern and pin it onto the fabric and follow the instructions. So that's really, really easy. But if you're just doing something, you know, kind of basic, make your own out of cardboard and copy the pattern. If you've seen something online, often they'll have a digital pattern that you can download, and then you can print that off parchment paper and make your own pattern off it so you can use it again, or use cardboard as a smaller project. A good thing for like scraps and various different pieces of fabric is making patchworks or sewing different prints and pieces of fabric together to make a larger project at the end of the day. So this is what I'm currently doing, and I've got lots and lots of different pieces of fabric in different squares, and I've sewn them all together. This is quite a light fabric actually, very light, so I will have to back this, but I just do it in my spare time, you know, when I'm bored, do different panels, and then when I've done several I'll just then sew them together. So this is my ongoing box, what I'm doing at the moment. In fact, I'll go through that shortly. But if I show you as well, see these are random bits as well that I'm putting all together just by sewing them, and then you just add them together and it gets larger and larger, and then these big pieces will get sewn together again. You'll say, oh, they're all different sizes, but that's the thing, that's the beauty of the cutting board, because what I'm doing is putting them all together, and then on the cutting board I will cut it down. Now this is a larger bit now, but they're all starting to get sewn together, and you'll see I'm using all sorts of different sizes to make up the large panel. So they will then all get sewn ultimately together to make a very large piece, one big piece, and it could be anything from a curtain to cushions. I will back it on some backing fabric because a lot of these pieces are very thin. Now I've got quite a lot of tablecloths which were beautiful, and unfortunately they're stained. So there's a massive big, I don't know if you can see it, but a massive big brown stain on it. But the embroidery on it is absolutely beautiful, and I feel we owe it to the person in years gone by who spent months and months, maybe years, doing all this beautiful work, sitting down with an embroidery hoop and just doing all these beautiful embroidery stitches. So, you know, these should never ever be trashed. So what I try and do is cut the panels out. Let me get a bit, yeah. I cut the panels out and I make things with them. This will be a little tiny lavender bag. I've also made hearts out of them as well. So I'll cut different shapes, and I might make a fabric heart or something and put the embroidery in. These are hearts that I'm currently doing, and I will stuff them with lavender. So it's just bits of fabric that I've had left over, that I really love, like, you know, you don't want to throw away. So this one is 2 pieces of fabric, and I'm putting those together, and what I plan to do is elasticate the side and make it into a dish cover. These, and again, are 2 pieces of beautiful fabric that I cut off something which was stained. Now this one, as you see, I've used this beautiful fabric on here, and then on the back I've put some tablecloth on, and that's beautiful. And you know, these are lovely, and you know, yes, they're small, but I'll just stuff them, put some lavender in them and just use them as decoration, or put them in a drawer with sheets so that make it smell. See, this is beautiful, this one. Lovely fabric on the back, and part of the embroidery on the front. It's a bit like a pomander in the olden days. There's some fabric here, and I've cut these up into exact sizes because what I'm going to do here is make a cushion cover out of this because it's beautiful fabric. This is my current box. You'll think, oh, there's a lot going off in here. There is. As crafters, we often have a lot of projects on the go, don't we? This was a nice one. I've got quite a few of these, and I thought I'll keep that and I'll incorporate that also into a project. Maybe put a frill or a piece of fabric around it and incorporate that into a cushion. I got this from a charity shop, thrift shop. It was in a frame. I took it out. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with that yet. I don't know if I'm going to back it and make it into a book or put it as a little throw cushion. This is one I'm working on at the moment, and it's an old-fashioned tabard. So it's a reversible, so you could have it two ways. It's white and floral on the inside with just some ribbons for the side parts, and then just a patch pocket on the front. And it reminds me of Grandma, because grandmas used to wear these tabards, didn't they, for cooking purposes. So I just thought, oh, I'll make a little tabard out of that. So I've used a different print, obviously, for the pocket and different material for the inside. So it's a reversible apron, that one. This one I've just finished. So this was 2 pieces of fabric. I've turned it inside there out, sewn obviously the seam down, and then just put a flap around. Used some brand new shoelaces inside and made a little hoop to hang. And this is going to be a bag for socks or shoes. It could be like for children to go to school, like a slipper bag or something. And I'm just using a bit of fabric, and that's so easy. So I cut the 2 pieces of fabric, both sides together, and then turned over, and with a decorative ribbon sewed it across the seam to encase it inside and also make it look nice if it's inside out. Then put a flap over, and then placed some shoelaces inside so that it can be pulled and ruffled up. Just a simple ribbon hook. Turn it inside out, and that could be anything: sock bag, slipper bag, hair stuff, anything. You can just put your slippers, shoes in your wardrobe and just hang it up. Simple. And it's using up some fabric, simple as that. And then I did another one, again the same. And this time I decided to put a pocket on the front, because I thought, well, the pocket's quite handy as well. That's extra things to put on. Same fabric, and then I just looped it over again. Did the same thing with that ribbon, and then you pull it. But this one, as I say, has got the pocket in as well. I think crafting also is all about giving us something to do, isn't it? To keep the mind and your well-being healthy. This is a beautiful piece of panel. I do love these embroidered cloths. I'm not very good at it myself, so it's the first thing that I pick up if I go to a charity shop. I have to buy them. I just appreciate the work that someone's done on these. This is a tablecloth that came from my mum's aunt, and unfortunately had that rust staining on the actual cotton. So I've cut the middle part off. Can you see there's still some there, little, like, you know, when they get rust particles on. So what I intend to do is to cut all the way around and take the lace off, so I'm just left with that piece, and then that will come in for a project. So I'll do that. So that's in the to-do box at night time when I'm sat down. And this here was off an apron, which is beautiful but got stained over the years. And that's a beautiful piece of edging anyway, isn't it? But it's really lovely, this blue. There's not a lot of it. It'll come in for a project. So I'm going to get one of those picks that I've got and undo it and take that off, and then that'll go in my little box of tricks I've got here, and I'll use that with something else. And this one, again, is another beautiful cloth. I think that's alright actually at the minute, so it's got a little tiny few dots of markings. I think that's a bit of rust. You see these old ones often are. So I could either put something on there, an embellishment, or have a bash at doing a little bit of embroidery myself. Just a tiny little bit to cover that area, and then it'll be as good as new, won't it? So this is what I've got in my box at the moment. Right, so let's crack on with this. So this is going to be like a cover for the bowl, and all you need is a disc of fabric and some elastic as well, and then it can be a reusable bowl cover. You can make them all in different sizes depending on what you want to cover, bowls, large, small. You can go over a plate as well. You need to cut a circle of fabric. You can sort of start with 6 centimetres in diameter, which is larger than the top of your bowl. Turn it under about 1/2 centimetre and sew all around to create your hem. Okay, then we need to pin and sew a length of ribbon to the edge, outer edge, to make it look a bit prettier. And then we're going to double up a length of shirring elastic, and we'll put a needle through it and we'll sew a simple running stitch behind the ribbon. You don't want it to be seen at all, and then you'll pull it tight enough to enable the cover to fit over the bowl that you want and fit snugly in place, but obviously allowing for it to be pulled off again as well, and then we'll stitch it securely in place. So let's get on with our clever bowl cover up. Right guys, so we're going to sew down the middle seam edge. Join it together first of all. Now we're going to turn over approximately 1/2 centimetre around the edge. So I'm going to pin all that first. So let's start sewing that first part we've now turned up. It's quite tricky because obviously it's a round piece, it's not on the straight, so take your time. What I'm doing is I'm zigzagging this bit thing over. It'll hold the fabric down and stop it fraying. Do you craft because you love crafting, or do you craft because you have time on your hands and you want to learn a new skill? Or do you craft for your well-being, you know, because it makes you happy, it's not stressful in any way? What are your views on crafting? I love that sense of achievement when you've made something and you've made something out of fabric or items that you'd ordinarily throw away. So I feel like, you know, that's really good. I've stopped it going from the landfill and I've used it a second time. It's not cost me hardly any money and I've enjoyed the process. However, and whatever you get out of craft is the main thing, isn't it? For whatever reasons you're doing it, it's that nice hobby, that well-being that you get from doing it. Put all of these strings and then move on to the next section. So it's now saying pin or sew some coordinating ribbon all the way around to the outside edge, sewing along the middle of the ribbon. Right, so I'm going to look for ribbon now. I've got some red and white spotted ribbon, which should go quite nice, isn't it? I've got lots of red because my favourite colour is red. So I'm just looking in here to see if there's anything that would be useful. See, that would be quite nice, wouldn't it? I'll just see if there's any little bits, because I know that one's about 3 metres. That might come useful for a larger project. Right, let's have a look in this bag. These are some bits. Yeah, let's go with these. I'm going to machine these 2 edges together first and then we'll pin it all the way around. So I'm going to pin now this ribbon around the outside edge of the cover. And then you need to sew in the middle of the ribbon, it says. Pin and sew a length of coordinating ribbon to the outside edge, sewing along the middle of the ribbon. Right, I'm just going to make myself a nice cappuccino because it's coffee time. What's your favourite drink then? I'll show you what I'm making today. This is my hugging a mug, as I call it. Right guys, so this is my lovely cappuccino which I need. And I found these. I'm not advertising for them really, I'm just saying I do like it though. This white mocha, I found that in Morrison's last week, and I'm having today this one, which is the cinnamon dulce latte, and it's a Starbucks coffee. I generally have Costa all the time. I thought, oh, I'll try it, and it is really nice. naughty but nice, but we all need a bit of a treat, don't we? So I generally have a ground filter coffee with my mum on a daily basis and with crumpets for our breakfast, but then I like to have my cappuccino as well, and ordinary coffee, no milk. Yeah, this is my choice today. So I hope you've got a nice drink on the go, keeps you going. I do call these hugging mugs. Right, so I'll carry on with this. Again, pinning it all around the edge. So are you making any craft projects at the moment? What you're making? Pop it in the comments box, please, and join in, because I love to see comments. And why do you do your crafts? Do you do it in your spare time? Are you at home all the time? It gives you something to occupy your mind. I work part-time at the moment, so I've got a bit of time for my crafts, and I really love doing it. I think there's nothing on the television, it's a load of rubbish most of the time. And the fabulous couple of things that I've been watching, one's just finished, and the other one, I've only got about 2 weeks left on it, and then that'll have gone, so I barely even look at the television. So let me know what you're making and have a go at this, because as I say, it's ideal. I want to do that beeswax on some material another time as a cover instead of using cling film. I've been and got some beeswax from the local penny supplier. Right, so I've put all the ribbon round the edge and I've pinned it, and I'm going to sew now in the middle, and I'll show you when I've done, so you don't have to listen to the noise. And I hope you're going to try this. Quite tricky because it's a circle, so the ribbon, you know, to get the ribbon staying secure and going a straight line through the middle is quite tricky at times. So just take your time, no rush. Try and do it if you can, steadily try and get it through that middle bit. So I've gone all the way around now. Right, so we've done that, and we've sewn it halfway in the middle around the edge, if you look at it that way, like that, so it's not on the edge. So let's see now the next stage. Just have a little bit of my coffee. Hugging a mug. Happy days, as I say, happy days. So next stage is pull the elastic tight enough to enable the cover to fit over the bowl and sit snugly in place. So let's measure around, pin the piece of elastic, and I'm just going to take it around the edge to measure how much we'll need. Right, so that's the whole length. Right, so you need to make the elastic smaller than the diameter, don't you? Now it's saying to do a running stitch along this elastic and then pull it tight enough. I think the thickness of this elastic and this ribbon, it might have been better to sew the ribbon not in the middle but to the side. It depends on the width of your ribbon really, doesn't it? So on the underneath side of this, I'm just going to try and press it down flat with my fingers. It's an iron, just to use your iron and press it down, and you'll get a really good edge. I'm just doing it myself at the minute, pressing it flat with the edge of my finger. Right, so I'm pulling the shirring really tight and doing a running stitch all the way at the inside of the perimeter, taking care not to sew in that bit of ribbon on the other side. Go slowly guys, so you get it right. Right friends, we're going to take it out now. Let's see the moment of truth. Yay! Obviously the elastic has worked his magic. So what we need to do now is to get all this underneath here, turn it over on itself and iron it down. I think as well hand stitch it so that it doesn't fray, like a shower cap as well, isn't it? I like how it's quite pretty around the edge, isn't it, as well? So when you put it around the bowl, that edge will be seen. So what we need to do is, with an iron all those flat now, so that the outer edge is flat and seen. I'm pleased with that. Let's see what it looks like on the bowl. Right, so that's the bowl cover, and the good thing is it will stretch as well. You can even do it tighter than this. Obviously you'd have to do it tighter if you need a smaller bowl, but I'm quite happy with that. It can go over quite a few bowls as covers. That's a nice bit of crafting for this morning.